Well, hi guys, this is just a few thoughts from Mark. It was all about when the 5,000 were fed and Jesus walks on the water and also the defiling of the heart. The first thing I notice is that after the disciples had been such a good time having deliverance from other people and healing and they've been very busy and got a lot of wonderful things happening, Jesus immediately comes back to them and says, go for a rest. He wanted them to go to a secluded place and rest. So that tells me that although we can do great things, sometimes God just calls us to rest. Sometimes we need, after a long time of preaching to people and helping people, we just need to rest. And it's like Elijah went into the cave and he was tired and needed a rest, although he wanted to hide away. But anyway, so they went away to the secluded place, but Jesus had a very good reputation and people followed him. So they went ashore, and even after all the time that Jesus had spent with the people and he went to a secluded place, when the people turned up again, he was still had compassion on the people. And I think that's pretty amazing. Yes, you can find rest, and we do need rest. But also, Jesus' compassion never ended. And he wasn't so much, for him, it wasn't so much how much rest he needed. It was, he had compassion on the people. So that was an interesting thought. Yes, we need to rest for the humans. Also, then it goes on to say that Jesus asked the disciples to feed the 5,000. And it looked like an impossible situation. So, but this was another test. He's very good at tests. Jesus was testing his disciples to see how much they'd learned and how much they were relying on natural situations or whether they were listening to his spiritual things. So they told him that he had 3 loaves and 5 fishes, or 5 loaves and 3 fishes. But the bit that I was interested was that the little boy only had these small items, but he was willing to give them to the Lord. And when we have got small things that we could give to the Lord, sometimes we doubt whether God can use these small things. And we have to be able to trust God to be able to use them. So even though you've got something small, if you give it to the Lord, then he's going to use it. And I think, and then Jesus took the loaves and he broke it and he looked into heaven and thanked God. Now I wonder, and then that reminds me of when Jesus broke the bread in communion. And I wonder, do we give thanks to God enough? And it says in the Bible that he looked up and gave thanks. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing of praise and thanksgiving to the Lord, to the Father. Then he broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples to set before the people. And I think that was quite interesting, because we all need to look up to the Father to say thank you and to bless him. The next thing that I picked up, or the Spirit told me, is the fact that they although they'd had such a wonderful experience and saw him do the fantastic miracle of providing food and drink for people, the next verse says, the next chapter is that, and it was also saying that it was all that there was 4,000, 5,000 men, but it didn't include the women and children. So there was quite a lot of people there. And then Jesus automatically said, when they went away, Jesus said to them, go up to a secluded place and rest. And this is what comes out very much, that Jesus took time to rest and pray to his Father. And we need time to rest and thing. And maybe when we rest, then we can think about what God has just shown us. When he told the disciples to get into the boat, he saw them, and he went up to the mountain on his own to pray. And Jesus does that a lot. He says, and then about 3 o'clock in the morning, he saw them struggling, and he goes to help them. But unfortunately, the disciples misconstrued him, or didn't see who it was, because again their hearts had been hardened, and they cried out thinking it was a ghost. And it made me think that when Jesus came to help them, but we often will, Jesus knows what we need, and sometimes the situation, the remedy for the situation is scary. Like if you've got cancer, going to the hospital could be scary. But if we trust him, then he will be able to work in it and be able to help us. But we have to open our eyes to what God is doing in the situation. You know, I always think maybe if I went to the hospital, maybe I'd meet somebody that I was able to help. So yeah, it's just, it says, take courage, it is I, stop being afraid. Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased. You know, we can spend all the time worrying and being anxious and being afraid, but Jesus tells us not to be afraid and not to be anxious. And when we can give him our situation and trust him, then he can come into the boat. He can come into our situation and trust him to do, and the storm will cease. Well, sometimes the storm will cease, but sometimes Jesus will be our peace in the middle of the storm. So you've got different situations, but the situation there was the fact that he was able to bring peace. But it was amazing that they'd seen the miracle of Jesus providing so much food, and yet just hours later, they were caught in a storm And immediately their hearts were hardened, and they didn't realise that God's power and God's grace for them. So then again, then there was the bit about the heart of man. It's not what defiles, it's not what goes into your body that defiles. It's what comes out. It's not what we take in, because our food is dispelled and got rid of. And then later on, it's saying about they go into exactly the same situation, about whether they trust God to provide. So there you go. I thought I'd share those with you, and I've probably not given you as much as I think I could, but there's a start. God will do so much. And a prophet is... Okay, I will leave it there, and I hope you like it.